Should we dive in?
Yes.
Let's go. Rock and roll.
You first. Question number one. How was your situation looking before you got started with coaching?
So I think there's two aspects to kind of approach it from. The physical aspect, I mean, it was out of control. If you follow the Better Body Collective Instagram and stuff, you've seen a picture of when I first get involved with you on a coaching basis, but that was actually that was actually not me at my worst, so to speak, at my worst physical shape. I think I was sitting at around 220, like about 100 kilos at that point. But actually I'd been up closer to 235, 240. And, just so there was the physical outward appearance, and then everything that comes along with that. So, not sleeping well, not moving at all, not being conscious of the movement that you're doing, whether it's walking up the stairs or whether it's lifting a weight. And I was in that place where, I know a lot of people get into, where it's, I'm just going to eat nothing but salads for 3 days, and then I'm just going to smash pizzas for 4 days. And, it was actually my wife, who is not a fitness and nutrition kind of nut at all like I am now, but she turned around, she goes, that maths don't really work, right? Like, if you're doing 3 meals a day for 21 meals a week, and you smash, pizzas on 65% of them, so
just need to flick it around, mate. That would have been fine.
Yeah, exactly. Right?
Just need to go through all this coaching.
Yeah, exactly. And then I guess what kind of really happened was, just as we got married in 2013, my dad, who is a really he's obese, he's not in great shape, he's got diabetes. That kind of came to a head with him, and he actually had some pulmonary embolisms move from his legs up to his lungs. He was in Texas. It was a huge shock to the family, ICU, all that stuff. And it actually ran a risk of that he wasn't going to be able to fly for our wedding. And so fast forward a wee bit, he ended up being able to fly. He was fine. He's fine now, outside of, the health problems that he had prior to that. And I just kind of made a kind of silent commitment to myself, that I wasn't going to put my own kids through that kind of helplessness feeling, and not being able to go out and play with their kids when they have them, and so on and so forth. So I think to kind of sum it up, I was very much living in the moment, in the immediacy, and looking for instant satisfaction and gratification. And what the change in mindset that preceded coaching and actually made me reach out to Ross, who obviously my cousin, but reach out for help, was, look, I've made a commitment to myself. You can trust the commitment. If you're going to help me, that I'm going to deliver back to you. But more so than that, I'm not doing it for the next 5 weeks. I'm not interested in what the scale says. I didn't really even have a hard number or a hard goal. I just wanted to get better. And I think that was the kind of fundamental shift in mindset that happened. And then you start to layer on the building blocks that come with getting healthier. So as you eat better and sleep better, and you feel more mentally and emotionally adjusted in your life, and then obviously, what you're seeing in the mirror, if you don't feel good about yourself, and then all of a sudden you see changes in the mirror and you're like, damn, I look pretty good today, like it's a pretty powerful thing. And I think that was the shift from pre-coaching to coming to the point where I recognized that I needed coaching. It was that was that moment, understanding that it wasn't really about right now, but it was more about the next 20 months, 20 years.
Awesome. Cool. So, I mean, we're going to dive into some other stuff in later questions, but Dan, we'll flip it to you. And obviously, we've known each other a lot less time than I've known Rafa there. Ross, so, we met not so long ago now. Tell me what it was like just before we met up in Raw Coffee here in Dubai for a chat.
Oh, Raw Coffee, yeah. Feels like a long time ago now.
It does, right?
Yeah, so I'd say for me, I mean, I've probably been training, in the most part, kind of on and off for probably 10 to 12 years now. So just around maybe 6 months before kind of we first went for that, the inaugural coffee.
Yeah.
So that was when I got married back in Ireland. So probably maybe 12 months before then, kind of training was going well, diet was on point, obviously kind of working towards the goal of, making sure kind of in tip-top condition for the big day, and the tailored suit fit well on the day. So everything was going well, probably kind of at the start of the year. We had to then go on our honeymoon around October time, just with the school holidays kind of back over in Dubai with the wife. So yeah, we ended up going away for like 3 weeks on the honeymoon, which was unbelievable. I'd say probably enjoyed life a little bit too much for those 3 weeks. But I think when I came back, it was literally just a case of kind of continuing the holiday mode for a little bit too long, really. Kind of pretty much like you, Ross. I think I was on a 7 on 0 off in terms of the pizzas at one point. Yeah, just eating it out, a lot of takeaways, kind of going out, having a few beers here and pretty much all the time. So just got a little bit too loose, I think, on the diet and the exercise. I think you put it well, Ross. I think probably for the 6 months before we reached out, I was just exercising. I wasn't training. I think that's probably one of the big differences. You look over these past 20 weeks, probably what's the biggest difference? It's actually having that focused intent. So I'd say just before I kind of decided to reach out, obviously did a lot of research on kind of local trainers in the area. And obviously you stood out from when we met probably a year prior to that at Coach Eugene's camp in Dubai, which was good. And then, yeah, decided to make the plunge. I think, it got to a point where kind of enough was enough. I think the work clothes started getting a little bit too tight, which had never happened to me before. So I think, just getting a little bit more guided direction, I think was what I was looking for. And it was the first time for me as well. I think I'd obviously trained with a lot of my friends are into fitness back home, but I'd never actually had that kind of one-on-one coaching relationship. So yeah, I decided to take the plunge from there.
I've got a bit of a side question, Dan. So from when you actually reached out and made that initial contact to when you first started thinking about it, what was the time difference between those 2 points? I'm always so fascinated by that, because we found that a lot of people, I mean, I'm not even joking, they can literally spend half a year contemplating the idea of reaching out for coaching before they actually do so.
It was quite a while. Yeah, it was quite a while. So I think probably just around the honeymoon time, so probably maybe around September.
Right.
So what was that? Probably about 3 months, I would say, in total. Kind of just like maybe playing around with the idea. And I know one of the things I'd kind of learned and picked up over the years of, following a lot of the guys in the fitness industry was don't just rush in and dive in, to the first person you see or to the person who looks the best. You look at kind of do your due diligence. So it was probably, just checking a lot of the content, and a lot of it resonated very well with me on, the likes of Instagram, Facebook, etc. And then obviously kind of the more, I think that the closer you get to making the decision, and then it's like, you know, you need to be all in or not at all, is, you know, when you're kind of making that investment in yourself. The way I looked at it in the end ultimately was, you know, you're probably putting in, you know, probably 6 months of your life to then kind of get yourself in a position where you've got the knowledge and education and you've built the physical aspects over that time to then warrant a little bit more of a, you know, a little bit more of a treat here and there in the long run.
Yeah, and I suppose figuring out where that factors in rather than becoming a constant that's kind of it's what I always like to say, it's educated flexibility is what it ends up being versus just.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nice.
I think that's one of the biggest things for sure.
Awesome. So I think that's a good starting point from the both of you. So question number 2, how did coaching and our time working together help you? Roscoe.
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I'm very much a creature of habit, good and bad. And so what I'm kind of looking for in any aspect of my life is structure and order and framework. And then within those frameworks, like, I tend to execute pretty well, right? So, you know, I'm one of these weird people that can literally eat the same thing, the same meal plan every day for 3 months, every day. It's just the way that I am. It's the way that my head works. And the reason that I'm like that is, again, it's because of those structures and those frameworks that kind of surround the goal and drive towards the goal, whatever that may be, whether it's a excuse me, a work task, a personal task, a fitness task, etc. So what really, the big thing that and I think this probably stands true even when we were working prior, Roscoe, like, you know, when we look at your work prior and the tools that you had available weren't fully fleshed out and developed for online coaching, then you fast forward to last summer in this latest round of, you know, 5-6 months where you've got all these tools that can facilitate that framework. It's still on me to fill them out and follow the plan and to execute, but the tools themselves provide this kind of as rigid or as flexible framework that you want within trying to achieve the objectives that you and I have set out for each other. And so the fact that they are so deep, or they can be so deep, you know, light sleep, deep sleep, REM, awake, you know, rest and heart rate, HRV, total hours of sleep, total time in bed, steps, blah, 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 all that stuff. I love that level of detail, and the framework around it allows me to execute within or towards the objective set out, right? And that to me is the biggest thing. Like, you're never going to be able to do the work for me.
Yeah.
What you can do is you can build and have built the foundation of the house using the tools, if you like. And then as our works progress, to continue that analogy, we've started to put up the walls of the house through education and osmotically, like, learning about macronutrient splits, about, you know, calorie deficits and the impact of stress on the body. If you decide that you're going to just try and lose weight by dropping 700 calories of your BMR equation, like, you're not going to have much success, right? Like, so these kind of things, again, starting with that foundation of the tools and then building the walls of that house around education and those kind of key components. And then you can dress it up whatever way you want in the fullness of time, whether it's a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line. My vision is that, you know, it might not be as regimented a training program and as a repetitive a training program for 8, 12, 16 week periods. It'll be more like hey, if you want to drop in a CrossFit class or train for a specific race or train for a competition or whatever, you're going to be able to do that and adjust. And that's kind of the curtains of the house, if you like, you know.
That ability to switch gears, very important.
Yep.
Because people often sight of that, they feel like, well, if I don't stick to the way that I've been doing things, then there's no way I'm going to be able to maintain the results. But the funny thing is, a lot of people don't realise is whether it's fat loss or muscle gain, is maintaining results is a lot easier once you've got it.
Yeah.
That's the key thing. So Danielle, flip that back on you. Our time working together, how has it helped you? What have you kind of got from coaching?
Yeah, I think so. I think for me, I'd probably split it up into kind of on the training side and on the diet side. I think fundamentally, just having the basics in place that I suppose before probably took had no idea of just how important they are. I know Ross mentioned a lot of them there. So, the likes of sleep, getting your water in, getting your steps in, getting your movement up. And then comes, the focused intent on the training, keeping the macros and the calories in order. I know prior to us working together specifically on the diet side, I would be very much like you said, Ross, very regimented in terms of what I would eat, very much, very rigid, very, very inflexible. But I think in the past that it worked in the short term for kind of short bursts, but soon kind of faded, got bored, or I'll just have a little treat here and there, and you kind of fall off the wagon quite easy. Whereas I know since we've been working together, the whole kind of approach to diet is you actually, for the past 20 weeks, I've not actually felt like I've been on a diet at all. Eating foods that I would never even dare to have eaten on being in a fat loss phase before, being able to still eat things like pasta and, have lots of potatoes and, the cereal after training, these are things which are like, kind of blow my mind.
I can relate.
It's absolute game changer. But I think, from a longevity perspective, when you actually implement those and you see the changes and you see the scales coming down, you see the pictures improving week on week, that it obviously works. And from an adherence perspective, it just becomes normal daily lifestyle routine then, kind of second nature. And actually, once you actually understand the learning behind it, there aren't any kind of bad foods as such, which is definitely something I used to tell myself, oh, I can't have that because that's a bad food, that's a good food. So I just completely eliminate them. But then, the cravings just come back 10 times over. So on the diet side, that's definitely been a huge learning. I think when it comes to training, I would say I've probably always had quite a good work rate, or at least I thought I did before we started training together. Then I know what proper training sessions are like on the hack squat now. But I think in that side, it's really about taking that hard work and actually kind of more working towards like focused intent. And I think just the subtle changes in technique and the subtle cues, that they've been so invaluable, and they'll last. I can take them forward forever now.
It's funny that you say that, because obviously I watch Ross's Instagram and a lot and like everyday type thing, and I've seen a couple of your sessions where you're pushing out. And there was one just a few weeks before lockdown where you were pushing out a couple of last reps, and it was obviously like you're obviously like smashing it, right? And like the whole point was like that's what like you need to get to in the gym. That for me, that just kind of little bit of gear shift. I was like, shit, I need to get better there. Like I need to make sure that my last couple I'm really struggling with here. You know what I mean? Like it was. So I can relate to that.
It helps when you've got a coach standing beside you going, You don't get to stop here.
Yeah, it's worth its weight in gold, that having you over the shoulder on that hack squat, I tell you.
Indeed.
Hack squat sets of death. The Widowmaker sets are the
life changing. Puts hers on your chest.
Right.
But I think just being able to build up that, I suppose, the mental resilience of knowing where you need to take it, and being consistent with that kind of day in, day out. And I used to get very hung up on, right, I need to beat X number, and week on week add more weight to the bar, and at the sacrifice of everything else. When actually, when you kind of drop it right back and really focus on working the target muscles and focus on the technique, it's quite unbelievable actually how little or how much less you actually need to use to actually get the level of stimulus that you need. So that's been a big thing in terms of whether it be, especially now with the now we're all stuck in quarantine, focusing on technique and tempo and isometrics, things like that have been worth the weight in gold now, especially having to be a little bit more creative with the at-home training.
I couldn't agree more. We actually just before quarantine there, we actually did a week of regression, because I was caught in that same mindset where it was like I need to be weak in order to progress. I need to load more weight onto the bar. And I reached out to Ross and I was like, I'm going to drop weight on a lot of key movements just in case you see like my tracker drop weights. And he was like, you do it, like form, tempo, all that stuff. So I can totally relate to what you're saying.
I think, and it's all about you're progressing in other ways, not necessarily just adding weight to the bar. Whether that be better form, better tempo, just actually the skill of that targeted and focused intent of where you want it to be going is definitely a learned skill over time. And I think again, that's something over the last 20 weeks, which is week on week kind of just improved. I mean, I think what was it, Ross? Probably 16 weeks that we went at consistently on the same program. And as that every week, you're just building up that skill level.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very close to 16 weeks. I think it might have been 14, from what I can remember. Mm-hmm. We started shifting gears. We took the kind of weeks 15 and 16 to kind of go through the actual new setup program, because you're now falling to rotations and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it was very cool. And the thing is with just speaking for Dan, because obviously I got to see Dan in person, I think I could definitely speak to the work rate. Like that was literally from session one, it was there. And I said that to Mal even before week one was over. I said this is going to be a really good result, because a lot of people just don't have it. Like it takes them a long time to foster that ability to work that hard and to have that work rate, to want it so badly that you're willing to go there. The only thing you really needed at that stage was, can you apply that level of intent and intensity with that kind of precise sniper-like precision to what you're trying to do? And I think it's that marriage of the precision and the accuracy with the intensity and intent. When you get that marriage together, that's where the magic happens. And a lot of people ask you get the question, right, can I build muscle while being in a calorie deficit? Well, you just have to look at your back shots and you can see that you're very close to the cat, right? If you know how to train properly, and that's been key. Cool. So I'm going to flip it back to you, Roscoe. There's a part B to this question.
Okay.
So, because I was going to see if you guys would kind of go there on your own, but I'm glad you didn't actually, in a way, because I thought the points you covered were actually a lot more relevant to that specific question. The question is, in your own words, because I could quote the numbers and the figures and everything else, but I just want you to tell me like what results you felt you achieved during this phase. So for you, Ross, it's been 30 weeks for you, and Dan, when we get to you, it's been 20 weeks for you, which is quite interesting. Yeah. The two slightly different time frames as well.
For me, it's been a couple of things, and keep this pretty succinct because it's a good question. I don't want to digress. On the kind of physical side, it's clear. I mean, there's been some pretty considerable weight drop there, a lot tighter. I feel like I've started to build a foundation of muscle now that is gonna all the way through my body from ankle to the top of my head, and that's giving me a foundation to build whatever way we decide that we want to go on. I think from a nutrition perspective, echoing what Dan was saying earlier on about really understanding through the process and actually having lived through it that a calorie is a calorie is a calorie. And if you understand how to structure your calories for the amount of effort that you're putting in training or non-training days every day, then you're going to be okay. Like over time, you might see a spike, you might see a drop, you might see it, but over time, you know, if you look at the weekly drop, then you're going to be fine in that regard. I think the unseen component for me is where it's just been, I don't really know how to put a superlative on it, to be honest, because you know there's been a lot of challenges with my professional life, the industry that I'm in, etc. The company that I'm in and whatnot, and as that was spiraling kind of out of control, what training and what our work together provided me was the structure that I needed in my life to stay focused on something, anything, you know, like outside of the outside of obviously my family. My kids would be at school during the day, my wife would be at work, and what was I going to do as things were spiraling out of control at work and we were shutting offices and things like that. Where it really benefited me was in that kind of mental state of just constant achievement and still being a high performer, because I've always been a high performer through my academic kind of young life and through my professional life. So this was a real big shock, right? So I think that's it. Physically, I mean, it's clear, you know, muscle definition, base, nutrition, understanding that the flexibility is inherent within the science of nutrition. And then on the kind of biggest one for me was that mental wellness aspect and the acuity that our work together and our program together was giving me through a pretty difficult time.
Nice. I mean, obviously you mentioned about the physical appearance aspect, and like you said, it's been a clear weight drop. It's been about 13.5 kilos from at least this last 8-week phase. Tell me a bit more about the physical aspects from a performance point of view, not just in terms of what you can do in the gym, but also just your quality of life and how just day-to-day life feels compared to, you know.
Well, compared to even a year ago, which you know yourself, I wasn't in, if you're looking at the average male in Canada, I wasn't in horrible shape a year ago. I mean, I was fine, like sitting at 200 pounds, a bit of dad bod, whatever. You know, like
a dad bod for a while.
Yeah, like, I mean, right?
Kids.
That's next on the cards for me. Just being primed for it.
Try a run.
Indeed. But it was just like, you know, I'm 41 at the time and I'm kind of like getting a wee bit creaky and things like that. I actually can't. So the two components, number one, the strength in general. Like, I can't believe that for somebody my size, my build, the strength that I've built over the last 5-6 months. Like the fact that I'm putting up, you know, 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps on 110 pounds, 55 and 55 dumbbells is like blowing my mind. The fact that I hit a 3-rep personal best of 225 on the bench press was like, if you'd told me that 5 months ago, I simply would not have believed you. I'd have been like, I'm never getting there. Like, it's too much. So on this pure strength and training, like, just it kind of freaks me out, like what I can do. On movement in general, I didn't realize how much pain I was in. Like, and I don't mean pain like, you know, you're walking around with a pulled hamstring or whatever, but just like walking was a challenge, and you know, getting out of the pool, kind of difficult. You know, legs always feeling tired, and you know when you, well, you know, when he's making you do the Widowmaker set, and
walking down the road.
Exactly. The next morning, you're walking like John Wayne with the dog.
Not feeling too well.
Yeah, like with it was like constantly walking around with DOMs, right? Like I you know, you getting up and you're getting in the shower in the morning. I'm like, why are my legs hurting? I never even did anything yesterday. I think that kind of day-to-day ease of movement, fluidity, like I actually have a bit of flexibility about me now, which is, again, like if you'd told me 6 months ago you're going to be able to touch your toes relatively easily, I would have laughed at you, you know. So I think there's those two components to it, have been just mind blowing for me personally.
Awesome. Dan, let's reverse engineer your answer a little bit. So we'll start with the physical qualities that you've gained from a training perspective, and then we'll work it back to the, you know, the actual results from a metric standpoint in terms of your appearance and all that stuff.
Yeah, sounds good. So yeah, I think from when we started, I would never have thought we would have got where we're at now in such a short space. I think there's some key lifts that kind of stand out from a performance perspective. I think the number one is probably on the shoulder press. I think week 1 we started off on, like, you know, struggling for 8 reps on like 12s, 14s.
That's kilos, just so you know.
No, not them pink dumbbells. Thankfully not, anyway.
Using those pink dumbbells for dear life.
they do have the place for sure. But yeah, I mean, I think now we're up to, like, you know, 20, 26, 28 for, like, you know, 6 to 8 reps, which, you know, over the span of, you know, 16 to 20 weeks is that's been probably the number one that sticks in my mind. You know, like, just literally week on week, you know, progression, whether it be increase on weight, better form, more reps. I think the other one too that sticks in the mind is on the dips as well. I mean, I remember the first time getting the good old Parkinson's after about three body weight reps, struggling for dear life over in the springs. And now, you know, I think we're going for like maybe 8 to 10 with, you know, 15 kilos strapped on. So to go from, you know, struggling on body weight to even just adding a little bit of weight on the belt has been huge progress, both from a performance perspective. But I think the big thing as well, you know, that sticks in the mind is, you know, that's been 20 weeks in a constant deficit. And, you know, you alluded to it earlier, you know, can you build muscle whilst on a deficit? And I think, you know, the performance numbers, you know, when you actually look at the data, is nice to see. I think you know, during the process, you sometimes forget kind of how far you've come, but that when you look back over the numbers, it definitely gives you that next push for the, you know, the next kind of 6 to 12 weeks. So I think that they're probably two of two of the big ones that stick in the mind, and obviously, you know, the hack squat is always going to be there. You can no getting away from that one. From now on. And
that really is your killer. That one, isn't it?
He's mentioned that I think 20 times in this conversation.
It's like a cycle. It literally stays in the mind before I go to bed every night. Like psychological killer.
My T1 that I dreaded every time was the dumbbell RDL. Like I used to hate Mondays and Thursdays just because of the dumbbell RDL, like because it was such a difficult movement for me and blah blah blah. Now and T2 for me, it's the well, there's the superset. It's the heel elevated split squat that goes into a reverse lunge. Oh, stop. And it's on a Thursday as well, so you've already got like 2.5 training sessions done. Plus, if you do your like low steady state on the Wednesday, it's like you're 65-70% through the week, and it's like then you get hit with that. You're like, bastards.
High five to the face of that chair.
Yeah.
You can't wait for that rest day after that.
Oh God. Like it's all plain sailing from there. Even because the program I'm on, like as soon as I'm done that, I know that like there's a little bit less pain coming for the next day and a half.
It's a good.
Yeah, everyone has their turning points in a training session, especially those leg days. It's kind of like if I just get through that set, then we're all right after that.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the best thing is that I go from that superset to like to a high to low cable pull. So it's like going from like heavy leg to chest. So you're like, oh, this is wicked. Like on the other side of this,
chest out the gym.
Absolutely.
You're going to have to make them sessions harder for him next time, Ross.
Yeah,
Dan, the physical results. Tell me a bit about obviously your kind of starting point and kind of I suppose where you are now.
Yeah, so I think we started around 81 kilos. Thereabout.
Exact, yeah.
I think now we're on. So the weekly average for this past week was just over 69 kg. So yeah, just around 12 kilos. Which I mean, I would probably never have said that was achievable again in the time. But I think if you break it down kind of day by day, I know Ross alluded to it earlier, just getting into the routine and building the good habits. It's surprising how quickly you can chalk off the days. I mean, I think I said to you the other day, I can't believe it's literally check-in week 20 this past week. It really has just flown by, really. Yeah, and I think I mentioned it just before we started. The work clothes were getting too tight, but I've literally had to buy a new wardrobe of work clothes now because none of them fit me anymore. So it's always nice to go back and see what you used to be wearing, just to kind of see how much you've come, how far you've come. Sorry.
It's funny you say that, Dan. You teed it up perfect. I wasn't sure whether we'd be able to jam it in the time, but the T-shirt I'm wearing, I bought probably a decade ago, and I think I got to wear it maybe once or twice. I was on a trip to Detroit with my wife, and I've never been able to fit into it, but it was one of those ones that you keep hanging about in the closet just because you're like,
just in case.
One day I'd like to be able to fit into it, and so as I was getting ready to jump on with you guys today, I was like, I've actually got the perfect shirt to wear on this right now, because I hit 70.0 on the scale this morning, and it's incredible.
Brilliant. Nice. Cool. We'll shoot that way. A nice segue onto question 3. Question 3 is one of those, it'd be interesting to see where you guys kind of go with this. I'll flip this back to you, Roscoe.
Mm-hmm.
How is life different for you now?
I think it goes back to kind of what I was saying in the previous question. I think that I'll actually answer this under the current kind of situation that we're all in with lockdown and COVID and whatnot. What our work and our program and the framework that I mentioned before has given me during this time is structure. Again, it's a framework, and within that framework, I've got enough knowledge that I've been able to build out a program that will show progression over the next 8 weeks. That I'm sure you'll have comments on over the weeks and stuff like that. But there's going to be gains to be made over that 8-week period. But more so than anything, it's given me the structure that I need to execute physical, psychological, and nutrition goals over time. And that was severely lacking in those areas of my life, where it was like you'd pick up for a couple of months, like Dan was saying, get really hammer it, or get in on some sort of diet, or try and track your calories for 4 weeks at a time and whatnot. And nothing was really structured. And again, speaking to my own capabilities, I need structure and framework. And in those really key areas of nutrition and training, what our work has done is given me the structure that I can live a different life in those areas. And the subsequence of that, or the way that that manifests itself on a 24/7 basis, is I'm just a happier person overall. I'm better with my children. I'm more aware of my own mood, my own limitations, what I can and can't do. If I have to take a step back and go, well, maybe you're lacking a wee bit of sleep here and you're being a bit grouchy, it's just tuned me into myself a lot more, and made me consider a lot deeper aspects of who I am every day.
Nice. Dan, right back at you. How's life different?
Yeah, so I think for me, there's probably a couple of things that stick out. I think when you're doing these kind of things, you have to be, quite selfish in a sense, and obviously, you have to do it for your own well-being. And I think, I probably have been quite, very probably dedicated and focused. But I think what I've learned throughout the process is that when you actually, like Ross alluded to, when you actually understand the why and you actually get educated and, learn the knowledge and kind of the guidelines of how to adjust and be a little bit more flexible when, because at the end of the day, life's always going to get in the way. Over the past 20 weeks, we've had Christmas Day, my 30th, Valentine's Day. There's been many kind of social events that have got in the way, but it's never really kind of derailed any of the progress. I think there's one of the weekends that kind of stuck in my mind on my 30th birthday when, kind of the wife had booked a weekend away in Abu Dhabi, nice meals, a few glasses of wine, and, woke up the next day and, I think that was probably the biggest weight drop for that week. So, and that's all come from the knowledge and the experience for kind of the 12 weeks prior to that, of just being more aware and making the better decision. I think that's probably one of the most important things for me now, is actually always looking to make the best decision. It's okay to have a little bit of a treat here and there, a drink here and there, but it's just being mindful and not having like the whole bottle of wine, just having a glass or two and enjoying it rather than, just dogging into the whole thing. And it's those little things for me now. It's all about the balance at the end of the day. And I think I'm quite looking forward to, I think it's been a very structured, very, very focused 20 weeks. I'm quite looking forward to getting to a point where we reverse diet up and then just don't track anything, don't weigh anything for 4 to 6 weeks and just see how things go. And I think that will be the true test and sign for me to kind of put what I've learned into action. Being able to just live normally. Not having to be so meticulous about how much chicken you're eating. I think you always have to go through that process to learn. But then I'm quite looking forward to putting that into just normal daily routines and just being able to kind of live off instinct rather than kind of having to go back to a tracking sheet every single day for the rest of your life.
Definitely. I think a good point to add to that there is just essentially what the real end game is to get to a point where you can, the big buzz phrase at the moment is this whole intuitive eating thing, right? You guys probably both heard of people talking about eating intuitively and intuitive eating, and depending on which circle or camp you're in, you've got obviously a lot of you've got a lot of these different groups, female groups especially, are talking about body positivity and everything else, like, learn to love your body and eat intuitively and all that sort of stuff. Taking it away from maybe the more psychological aspect of it, if you just look purely from a very logical standpoint, people often want to do the intuitive eating part without doing the groundwork that it takes to get to that point. And that's where the big issue is. It's like, kind of like Ronnie Coleman said, is everybody wants to be a bodybuilder, but no one wants to lift heavy ass weights, right?
So true.
And it's like, and the way I see it is the 20 to 30 to whatever weeks it is. I mean, you guys have also done incredibly well. There'll be people that start off in a position potentially way worse off than, essentially, Roscoe, where you were years ago. A lot of people starting in the 100 plus kilos and, they got a long old journey ahead of them, and you've got to be willing to lift the heavy ass weights before you can, do it on autopilot. You got to earn the autopilot.
And I think as well, like, it's really interesting thinking about myself and Dan and where Dan wants to go. Like, I don't know that I'll ever be fully, because I'm a wee bit OCD like that. Like, I think I'll always be the guy that weighs, like, even moving forward. But by the same token, like the reverse dieting up and stuff like that, I'm looking forward to that just because, again, the knowledge base that we have now, like, can enjoy different kinds of food and know that tomorrow I'm not going to blow up to 100 plus kilos, and like, and you can implement the things where I think, what I should say is that I'll, on a normal day, on an everyday, I'll probably always be the guy that weighs just as a sense check and all the rest of it. But where it'll be nice is knowing that if we're going out for dinner and stuff like that, it's going to be fine tomorrow if you don't track tonight, and making those sensible decisions. Like, but yeah, I think that, to talk to your point there, Ross, around going back and people starting the journey, I think the biggest message that I've said to people when they've asked me, because they've obviously seen changes and are like, "What are you doing?" I'm like,
yeah.
Well,
that's a great point.
Yeah, the first thing that I tell them is, like, look, you got to understand that it's not a diet or something that you're gonna, get there in 6 weeks' time. It's just not going to happen. But depending on what your goals are, you can get there at very small increments. So it's not a choice that I made for a 12-week program to lose some weight. It was a choice that I specifically made that I was going to reflect for the rest of my breathing days, because that's what I wanted. I didn't want to be in a position when I'm 70 where I couldn't move, I couldn't play with my grandkids, etc., etc. And so that in itself was a good frame of mind to come into the process with.
think that's a good point. I know there's a lot of people always, you know, when they know kind of, or they see, you know, you've lost quite a lot of weight, and the first thing they say is, oh, you know, what diet have you been on? What have you been doing? What's the secret? And, you know, it's like when you're honest with them and say, well, you know, just make sure you get good sleep and drink lots of water and get your steps in, and they're like, what? Like, really? It's like, you know,
wait, hold the bus. That's too much common sense. Too much common sense. We don't do that type of shit around here, okay?
No, it's surprising. It's surprising. A lot of people always want the, you know, want the easy route and just turn up without actually wanting to learn the, you know, the reasons why. But I think the other good thing to mention is the importance of actually having a goal. And like I said, you know, just breaking it down into the week, you know, the weekly steps, the daily steps, you know, even getting down to the point of, right, I will make my meals every day for the next day, so I'm ready. And, you know, as long as you're ticking off those basic things every single day, you know, you're still working towards it. And then, you know, 12, 20, 24 weeks down the line, it's surprising how quickly that can go. But then that has a lot of crossover into your other aspects of, you know, your professional life, your social life, you know, other relationships, other things you want to achieve. So definitely has a lot of benefits on the mental side of things as well.
I think trusting the process as well, Dan, like, and just knowing, like, you know, the scale can say one thing one day and one thing the next day, but over the piece, those small increments are going to add up to big results. Exactly. And if you just follow the process and trust the process, trust the coach, and that he knows what he's doing.
Exactly. You have to.
Yeah, I like that. That's a huge thing, right? Like, because it still freaks me out that I can have like a couple of squares of chocolate every night, you know, and then the next day I wake up, I'm like, I've dropped more weight. I'm like,
because at Christmas time, I literally had like greens and black advent calendar.
Yeah,
it was literally just a bar of greens and black every single day, and you still see the weight scales going down. You're like, what is going on?
I know, this is not what they told us. We were promised jetpacks. Like, what happened here?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to touch on a few points. There's a lot of really good stuff that came out of both of those answers. I think the first thing is the phrase I use all the time, which is the sum of the whole is greater than its constituent parts. Mm-hmm. And so to try to get that across people, I always use the example of meals, right? Like if you have 4 meals a day, 7 days a week, well, that's 28 meals. You do that across a month. What's that? 112, say across 4 weeks.
Yeah.
4 bad, say you have 4 less favorable decision meals. It's 4 out of 112.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, and the whole is worth way more than its constituent parts. The other thing I wanted to touch on, I guess, was people are going to respond to different parts of the process differently, right? So I think some people, they just really struggle with dieting. They really struggle with the calorie deficit, and they struggle with because let's face it, I mean, there's a certain element of it that is restrictive in nature. I mean, you have to impose a certain amount of self-restriction. There's no doubt about that. Yes, there's the framework, and you can incorporate foods in, but like both you guys know, everything comes with an opportunity cost. You put something in, you're losing satiety, you're losing nutrient density, there's always a trade-off to be had, right? And so whereas Dan's looking for that, you know, flexibility and variety later down the line, the challenge actually for you, Roscoe, is going to be, and we will have to do this at some point, is it's going to be, right, I'm going to banish you from weighing your foods, and you're going to go through a phase of learning non-tracking methods to control your intake. Because that actually is, because a lot of people would stop when you've done the diet. You've done the diet, you've known how to track calories and macros, and then you're done. But like we've all three of us have talked about a lot, is the exit strategy, and exit strategy is not the same for everyone. For some people, it's going to be come out and then potentially go back in again if there's more further to go. And for others, it's going to be come out, consolidate, and either consolidate for a lot longer or build up to the next thing, right?
Yep.
And the reality is that it's no way you can consolidate or say you've truly consolidated unless you can return to, and it's never going to be the same normal as the past. You create a new normal, right? Based on who you are, and not just physically, but who you became as an individual, and mentally and spiritually and everything else. So yeah, I think it's like each of you will have your own, as you go through each phase of the kind of better body journey, it's going to be different challenges at each point and different tools and tactics we have to put in place to achieve that, which will be super, super interesting.
I knew you were going to chin me for saying that I would always weigh my food.
You knew.
It's like I could feel you bristling on the other side of the camera there, like, no, you think you're saying that now, but actually I know better.
Like, hold on, mother. You can talk off camera. You saying cool. So I've got a few more questions left, although actually this always happens when I write out questions, is that people always do such a good job of answering so much of the later questions and the previous questions. So I'm going to impose a little rule on this. We're going to keep it to a sub 1 minute. It's your elevator pitch answer.
Okay.
Here's a challenge for you. So outside of the physical transformation, what's been the most profound outcome that you've gained from this experience to this date? You've got 1 minute. Ross.
From my perspective, it's all about knowledge and mental wellness, like spiritual wellness, however you want to call it. The knowledge base that if I don't have to weigh my foods or my batteries run out in my digital scale, I know what choices to make. And having the knowledge to do that, if we get locked down because of a global pandemic, I've got the knowledge to be able to put in place and execute a program that will show progression over a number of weeks. And the way that has manifested itself in my daily life is just a far more. I'm a far better adjusted human than I was previously.
Nice. Dan.
Got the stopwatch at the ready. So I think for me, here you go. I think the probably the biggest fundamental thing is probably you build up a level of kind of both physical and kind of mental resilience. Being able to kind of turn up, day in, day out in the gym and actually know that there's going to be a certain level of pain that you need to endure. Again, kind of has a lot of crossover into, a lot of other aspects of the day-to-day life. So, when you are in kind of tough positions, kind of you're out of your comfort zone, you've kind of built up a bit of that resilience and that mental strength to, actually not think things don't seem to bother you as much, or you can just manage them and control them a lot better. And I think, given the current climate, the current situation, there's not really a lot we can do about it. Not really, it's not really worth getting too upset over that. You can't go over the gym, or you can't do this, you can't do that, because ultimately you can't control it. I think being stuck inside, it does take its toll after a while, but you soon kind of get over it and learn to just move on and only worry about the things that you can control.
Nice. Very good answers. I think that just about stayed on a minute there. Even if it didn't, we'll forgive you, Dan. Next question's it's an interesting one. I'm interested to see what you guys come up with this. So, Roscoe, I'll put this one back at you first. What excites you most about the future?
I could probably keep this one under a minute as well, to be honest. I'm super excited to see what goals we come up with next. I think I said it to you coming out of T1 and going into the T2 phase, that you asked me the question over Christmas when I was on a 2-week break, doing whatever I wanted and all the rest of it, hit the ground running. And I think it was my first weekly check-in after that, where you said, okay, here's T2, here's what we're going to do. Coming out of this, we're probably going to look at 16 to 24 weeks, depending on how you adjust. And then on the back of that, we'll reassess and we'll set some new goals. And I remember your thought just kind of drifted away a minute, and you're like, whether it's you want to train for competition, or you want to train for a Spartan race, or whether you want to do CrossFit or whatever. And I've been enjoying this process through T2 a lot, the results have stayed there. But I've been spending a lot of time thinking about, what does T3 look like? What do I want to accomplish? Do I want to be able to get in a boxing ring and take on some of that? And how does that look for my training and whatnot? And I think I'm just generally excited about those goals that we come up with together, because I think it will be fun. And it will be more of my own working with you to define those goals and objectives, rather than, because I've got the base of knowledge through T1 and T2, rather than you saying to me, this is what you need to do in order to get to that new established baseline that you want to get to, right? Hello.
Special guest.
Yeah. What are you saying?
When are we going to the basement?
We're not going in the basement. This is actually really funny and not scripted. During lockdown, I've done a little rage cage in the basement, and our basement is only semi-finished, so we don't normally take the kids down there. And so Monday, Tuesday, Thursdays, and Fridays, I'm in the rage cage, as I've called it. And she's just, but I take the kids down with me now, and they mess about down there. She just came in and said, "When are we going to the basement today?"
Partners there.
Today's not a training day, Violet. Anyway, that's my answer.
Good way to end it too, Dan.
Yeah, so I think for me it's I touched upon it a little earlier, but I think being in a position, just to have the flexibility, when it comes to diet and going out for meals here and there and kind of social events, but still knowing and having the tools in the back pocket to be able to manage things and account for those events much better. In the past, it's always been kind of a bit of an all or nothing approach. But I think, now and going into the future, I know I kind of learned how to train, properly now in a kind of well-educated way. And I think that's something that, is only going to get better the more and more you practice over time. So, and again, same on the diet side of things, knowing the little guidelines, the little tips and tricks of kind of adding that structure and having a little bit more flexibility in the routine to account for things is what I'm quite looking forward to. I think probably the position I'm in now, I've probably never been this lean, so I'm definitely looking forward to kind of building things back up, and then I suppose deciding where to head to next.
Exactly. I mean, I think the thing that's super exciting, I mean, both of you are in a position where you're actually both reverse dieting and both run about the same time as well. So you're going to be your first kind of time going through that process properly, which will be super interesting to see. And the reality is, a lot of people don't realise is you kind of alluded to it, Dan, earlier when you talked about the 888 Abu Dhabi with the glasses of wine and the meal and how your weight dropped. And the thing is, a lot of people don't realise, and we kind of spoke about this, is how much of an effect stressors on the body has. And psychological stress has a huge impact on our physiology as well. And I think often when people are going through dieting that's very restrictive in nature versus a bit more growth mindset in nature and a bit more flexible, is that having that flexible meal is so much of a stress that it actually becomes harmfully impactful to that process, versus it can literally be the opposite end of the spectrum. Having something like that included in actually becomes a huge benefit, because you're able to take a bit of a foot off the gas, enjoy that, really have that. Probably you've been waiting for something to have a really nice moment with the missus for a long time, and you'll be able to have that guilt-free, not worrying about negative consequences. And of course, what then came off the back of that was this reduction in stress. Now, where we are currently with the reverse dieting, we're now in a position where we're giving both you guys more energy availability. So you're now in a place where we're taking a little bit of that stress, that allostatic load off of the body, because it's got more food. And so I wasn't surprised at all when either of you said after week 1, I've actually lost weight. I was like, okay, that's exactly how we want it to respond, because we're now giving the body a much less stressed environment. And as you guys continue building those calories slowly up, I'm very excited actually to see once we reach maintenance calories what your physique's looking like.
Yeah.
Now, of course, like you said, Dan, the next stage from that then is like, okay, well, at what point do we get to where was how lean we got as far as we wanted to get, or do we want to push it a little bit further? And then that's the thing is though, you've put in the work to earn that right to make that choice.
Yeah.
Both of you, like you're at a point where you're like, well, you know what? I've got a little bit more in me. I know I can push it that little bit 4 weeks past the point I got to the last time. And that's a super exciting place to be in. But there's no harm also then, say you guys come out the other side of this, you reverse diet and you just maintain for a long time, you maybe focus on just recomp or potentially even a slight building phase. The next time you head back through the process, you're so much better equipped.
Yeah.
So I think if you had to ask me what am I most excited about for your future, for the both of you, it would be I'm super excited to see how you respond from a physique point of view, but also a performance point of view in the gym. And how much more of a balance that's going to then bring you to all the other areas of your life. Because if you've obviously both mentioned about these profound changes that you've experienced whilst being in essentially an energy deprived state, I'm super excited for both of you, just both in terms of mental focus, clarity, productivity, energy, just being able to show up in all of those other areas of your life outside of the gym when you're back at more of an equilibrium. That for me is what I'm most excited about for your future. So that would be cool to see. Final question for the both of you, because we're just encroaching on about an hour and 10, an hour and 15 at this point, I think.
Is it still working?
So believe it or not, so Mal speaking to now, Zoom popped up with a wonderful message saying, we've removed the 40-minute limit for this call. Thank you very much. And I was like, thank you, Zoom. I was like, it was meant to be. It's like the new recording a very important conversation. So, Roscoe, I'm going to start with you.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to someone who's potentially considering the idea of working with one of the team at the Better Body Collective?
I think that something that Dan alluded to in one of the early questions was around the requirement for due diligence if you're going to become a consumer of coaching online or in person. And I think within that due diligence, you have to really kind of brush the surface on what you're wanting to accomplish, so your internal, and how you're going to get there from a long-term perspective. And I think what the Better Body Collective does for me is there's no fad or this isn't a bunch of Instagram model coaches, whatever you want to call them, those people that kind of drag down the fitness industry and promising things to vulnerable people that simply aren't sustainable, realistic, or anything like that. What you're dealing with is highly professional, highly educated, highly competent people that are executing this and they're following this career path, not just for a paycheck at the end of the week, but because it's their true calling. And when you add in that empathy to all those kind of technical skills and learned skills that they have, I don't think that you could really make a better choice in a set of coaches to guide you through this journey. But make no mistake, it takes commitment, and you have to do it when you're ready. Because just because they're nice and they have empathy doesn't mean that they go easy. Look,
I can second that one.
as Dan's hack squat and my RDL will testify to. But yeah, that's what I would say about the thing that you can feel very sure about with the Better Body Collective coaches. Technical competency, professionalism, empathy, commitment, and a real educational component to everything that they do.
It's very kind words. Thanks, Roscoe. So Dan, over to you.
Yeah. I think there's a couple of things that I'd probably just build on top of and probably repeat what Ross said. Really, I think the level of kind of professionalism, in every aspect, and the level of structure, and you can see the amount of time and effort that's gone into actually building out the artifacts and the resources to make, kind of me as a client, making my life kind of as easy as possible, and really making sure there's no stone left unturned, really. The amount of kind of data that's requested, but that then makes the whole process so much easier, in terms of actually making those educated decisions. And I think it's, I've heard so many stories in the past of, and there's even people who I work with and people back home who they've signed up to these kind of 12-week, lose X amount of pounds and get fit schemes, and it's literally just a cookie cutter plan. There's no education thrown into it. I know one of my friends, he bought like a £10 program, and some of the sets in there were like 300 rep sets with like 10 seconds rest in between. It was just like, what is this, and then people wonder why I say, it doesn't work, it's a waste of money, but there's none of that with Better Body. I think you really need to, ultimately it's up to you to do the work, but the path is laid down perfectly in front. I think even probably the greatest example is with everything that's happened recently with the coronavirus. I know, Ross, you made the call straight away to say, from a health perspective, it's not ideal to be in such a serious calorie deficit.
Didn't that sum it up? Didn't that sum it up for you, Dan? Like,
exactly.
When I got that message, I was like, this is why this is different. This is why this set of humans are different than 90% of people out there advertising this service.
Exactly. I think it's when you're in the process, you kind of get you can get the blinkers on and the goggles on and kind of locked in, and especially when you've had amazing results over the past weeks before. But you know that ultimately at the end of the day, your health and well-being is always coming first, no matter what. There's no kind of fake schemes or anything. It's all kind of focused around, right, what's you, and actually taking the time to build that relationship and understand you as a person and what goals you're looking to achieve. And I know, Ross, kind of we check in pretty much every day, and no matter if there's any questions or anything, it's always a phone call away. So I feel it's much more than just a transaction. It's, you actually feel kind of part of a community, and that you actually build kind of friendships and relationships that are going to last a lifetime.
I totally agree. It's quite an emotional thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you need to, as long as you have the focus and the dedication, no one else is going to do it for you. No one's going to buy your food, no one's going to cook it for you, no one's going to go to the gym, no one's going to get your steps in, drink your water. It's the things which sometimes you don't feel like doing, but it's the foundations will be laid for you to succeed, and then it's ultimately on you to take it forward and grab it right by the reins.
Cool.
So I was wondering where he's going to finish that with there. Grab it by what was he going to grab it by? So I guess I just want to add to first of all, those are very, very kind final closing thoughts. So thank you for that. I think I want to finish just by commending the both of you for the amount of effort and time, and and we spoke of this way back at the start, both Dan and Ross. Like, this is never just a. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's never just a financial commitment or transaction. This is an everything commitment, and I made a promise to both of you. If you give me everything you've got, I will do my best to give it back in return. But I think the thing is, and to your point as well, though, no one is going to do it for you. Not even Coach Ross is going to do it for you. The only way that I see myself in this whole process for both of you is I'm just a facilitator, pure and simple. I'm only there to provide a roadmap, to lay down a path, to provide information when it's needed, to maybe pick you up on those times where things are feeling a bit off or a bit down. But I can't do the work. So you guys, ultimately, it's all down to you guys. You guys have earned all the results. You've earned all the credit for what you've managed to achieve to this point. The only thing I would say to anyone that eventually watches this is, if we could have, as a company, more clients like the both of you, then I think we would be doing incredibly well as a business at this point. And so that's, as a goal for our business, I've even said that God knows so many times, if we can get more clients like Ross's, like Dan's, who really resonate with what it is we're trying to do, which is we just genuinely want to help as many people achieve the best results, possibly better than what they've even comprehended they could even do on their own. The more people we can help like that, then I'll do this till I'm 65, 70. So thank you guys. It's been to this point already, it's been awesome, and I'm looking forward to like you said, I'm looking forward to the future. What's next? Let's see.
Yeah. Let's see what happens.
Exciting times ahead.
Absolutely. It was a real pleasure talking to you, Dan.
Likewise, mate. Likewise. Yeah. Hopefully we can catch up again sometime when we're not locked up in quarantine.
Or maybe while we are locked up, because we don't have that much else to do.
Yeah, exactly. I was quite looking forward to getting lean in quarantine, but can't do it anymore. So maybe next time.
Because Joe Wicks is going to be out with the program next week. Lean in quarantine.
You copyright that before it goes.
If I get the internet sorted out down in the rage cage, then we'll do a virtual rage cage session. Violet and Isabella, my little girls included.
It's been a pleasure, gents.
Downstairs, the rage cage. So good. I almost want to open a gym called the Rage Cage.
It's so funny as well, because it's just not a rage cage at all. It's just like some bands and some mats, and like, you know what I mean? When you think of the Rage Cage, you think it's going to be like, Rocky's gym in Rocky 4 with like carts of rocks and all this stuff. So it's got like little girls' toys lying around it, and like my resistance. Yeah.
People walking into your home gym, like, is this Pilates? Like, what?
Yeah, exactly. Purple play mats down there, and that's what I'm using. Hey, whatever works, right?
Yeah.
That's right. Squeezing those pink dumbbells, holding up those
Exactly.
purple mats.
It's got to be done. It's got to be done.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for coming on. It's such for you, Dan, it's a late hour. For Roscoe, it's right in the middle of the day for you. So
Hey, there you go. I've actually waited out a rainstorm here, so I'm going to go smash some running.
Oh man, nice.
Perfect timing.
And Dan,
see you guys
tomorrow.
Cheers.
Luckily, I'm working from home, so nothing too major.
Nice. Guys, thanks so much.
Guys.
Thanks,
Great
gents.
guy.
See you soon.
Speak to you soon.